Oh yeah! Special thanks to Samantha Flynn for designing this shirt, the very first DeMark-Out t-shirt. And a very special edition, only a few were made. We did sell some in red and black. This brought me a lot of luck. When these started coming out, I definitely had a lot of luck on my side. Hope everyone's enjoying their day, enjoying their weekend. As I mentioned on Facebook, I will be combining the last two main topics, storytime topics, and I'll get into that as we progress through this video. But first, July 26th, Reality of Wrestling's very first iPay-per-view taking place at the Humble Civic Center. It will be known as Summer of Champions. RealityWrestling.com will have more details. But it's going to be a stacked card. They're going to have a number of special guests: Josh Matthews, Alex Riley, Teddy Long, and Diamond Dallas Page, as well as, like I said, very stacked card. Very much looking forward to it. But again, go to RealityWrestling.com for more details. Yeah. Just wonderful, wonderful. So, as I mentioned, wanted to combine the stories. I want to do a little something special for 200 before I kick off the conversation series, and I'll talk about that a little bit later. So 200 is going to be a very special video, and then 201 will officially, hopefully for the most part, kick off my conversation series. I'm trying to get some guests, friends of mine, people within the industry, people that follow the industry, people who report on the industry, and friends of mine, people that I know, people I've had interaction with, some people that I may not know. I mean, right now I'm trying to get guests who are part of Reality Wrestling simply because of their iPay-per-view coming up. I have Justin Smith on the first one that'll be airing in a couple of weeks. And then going to be probably Ruthless Ryan Davidson. I think he and I have talked, and he's probably going to be on the show here shortly. And trying to get Kevin Bernhardt, his schedule, my schedule, just trying to line some stuff up. And then I'm going to talk to some of the other talent about being on the show. It's be conversational. That's why it's going to be conversations with. Very much looking forward to it. Had a blast filming the first one. Like I said, it'll air shortly in a couple weeks. But let's get through this video. And yes, story time. Now the first portion of it will be talking about Behind the Curtain, which me and Justin actually talk about a little in depth. As far as from the creation standpoint and as we progressed, which is, you know, kind of a little, this will be a little teaser to that, more on my end, what I was going through at that time. So, now, 2010 was a successful year for the most part for me, but also an injury-plagued year. I strained and pulled my quad as well as my groin. Not fun. Even more not fun to re-injure it a few weeks later, having this false sense that I could kind of work through it. But I had a pretty successful 2010. Was the TCW champion for a second time, had been the first champion, had lost it to Ryan Genesis and then regained it in the latter part of 2010. And I was still champion come 2011. In the very first part of 2011, like around February, my health kind of started dipping down. Just had some aggravating pains in my spine, which wasn't too much out of the norm, but it was hard. It was hard getting around sometimes. It would hurt in the ring, which was rare. At that point, I never really encountered a lot of pain except for some major bumps here and there. But it was like even minor bumps would take a lot out of me. It would be so painful. Remember wrestling for a TASW event. I wrestled Rockstar Robbie and felt okay, but not great. Not great. I was real limited. Felt real limited. And shortly after that, I was stubborn and wanted to push through, but shortly after that I started to get even more like worse symptoms. Like I would wake up, my limbs would tingle. I've covered a lot of this on YouTube before, but you know, it was kind of a scary situation. And I decided to stop being stubborn and actually go to a doctor. And luckily there was really no structural damage, but a lot of it was, muscle fatigue and some other things going on, some, nerve damage and whatnot that I had to kind of get looked at, get a specialist, and do a few things. And the doctor kind of said, look, let's run some tests, kind of see where you're at, see what's possible, what's not possible, but stop whatever physical activity you're doing until we get to the bottom of it. So I listened. And even though I was TCW champion, I had to give that up. And even though I was a top guy at TASW, I had to tell them and made announcements to the fans. The good thing was that for TASW, Bob had asked me if I wouldn't mind consulting with the show or hosting some of the show just to kind of keep me involved, which I really am tremendously thankful for. And over at TCW, even though I was the champ, there was talk of making me the showrunner, and I always kind of had issue about being both. So this kind of worked out to some degree. I mean, I had to hand over the title, but at the same time, now I had this opportunity. And I'd see Jay here and there, and we discussed the possibility of working together again. And working together on a project, and trying to figure out what that project would be, or maybe what wrestling promotion we would probably try to join forces and put out product for. So I think that was kind of the birth of Behind the Curtain. Jay had come up with majorly the concept. We kind of developed it, but really it was kind of like road trip diaries meets highlight video meets kind of like interview segments. It was kind of like a combination of a bunch of stuff, and I think initially we were going to use it as a way of trying to decide which product we would join, whether it be TASW or TCW. So we kind of looked at that, and I think initially that was the idea. Like we would go to a handful of shows for TASW and a handful of shows for TCW and kind of talk about the process and then make this decision type video, kind of going, hey, we're going to stay here. I'm not really sure what the end result was going to be, but I think that's kind of where we wanted to go with it. But as we progressed, we quickly found that we wanted to kind of do our own thing. Like, first couple videos were TASW influenced and kind of why we were doing the show to begin with. Then we covered that great Nacogdoches show, Rumble Mania for TASW, where I was kind of the host and I coordinated the show, and really great. I mean, we had almost 1,200 people were in attendance for that. Really solid card, top to bottom. And then we covered some of the TCW stuff and being the showrunner there, and having these lofty goals over at TCW and trying to see where they were going to go with things. And, being the showrunner had a little more influence as far as where we wanted to go with the show. But, we kind of highlighted some stuff. I really enjoyed doing the interviews. I enjoy doing those, which is why I think I want to do the conversation piece, because I really looked at it kind of as it was just fun to get to talk to guys like Lance Hoyt or ACH or Ken and Barbie or the women of MPX. We just tried a variety of things. The guys from MPA, like the entire roster of MPX. We had the motto that I had used at IWE, which is get yourselves over. That's what the camera for is, to get you over. Something to that effect. I mean, we use it at the beginning of every show. And I mean, Jay really kind of put everything together. But around like the 5th episode of that 0 season, we went to Doomsday, and that kind of became what we wanted to do, was like we'd go to different promotions, and as opposed to just the promotions we were a part of, or I was a part of, we'd go to even promotions that I wasn't a part of, or he wasn't a part of. Doomsday was one of those, just because of their characters and the way they put out the shows. I was very entertained by Doomsday, always have been, so I was a big fan of being able to kind of tell that story. and then we try to implement some of the storylines that were kind of going on, especially TCW. We try to utilize some of the talent in that respect to put over not just our product, but their product. Because I felt like it was important to kind of cross promotion, and we were creating a buzz. People kind of were aware behind the curtain because we were putting stuff out on YouTube. Went to ACW, which was a blast. Getting to talk to a lot of their talent and kind of seeing their shows. Getting to see Jerry Lynn. Wish I got an interview with him. But I got an interview with a lot of that talent. MPX, talking about the economy of a show and how it ran. And then we got to like episode 9. We went to a show and it actually had gotten canceled like 5 minutes prior to the show beginning. And so we talked about that, and that kind of flipped the script for us for a bit. I think at that point we were about like episode 9, so we didn't do that many, but we had like a lot of interviews, so on and so forth, a lot of extra stuff. Kind of did a best of like Dubstep Wrestling Remix, which was like the best of 2011, which was great. Jay did an awesome job on that. But we really enjoyed the show, and I think at some point we thought possibly it could be a TV show, or possibly we could kind of format it in that direction, which I think is where Jay came up with the 22-minute format and kind of changing the ideas for the official season 1, which would be kicked off in 2012. But then October of 2011, I announced that I would be coming back to wrestling, and we talked about how that would affect the show, and really we kind of saw it as a positive, because at least, hey, now I could go to travel to different shows, and we could bring in people and get a cast and a crew and get these characters and so on and so forth. And Jay was tweaking with the format. We thought of like a Wrestle Center type of show where we'd have, analysis and so on and so forth, a lot of green screen stuff. So yeah, man. And between the seasons, like TASW, once I thought, okay, I'm going to start wrestling, and my consulting, like I'd still consult, but very difficult to do both, in my opinion. Very difficult to do both. I kind of want to be very objective and unbiased, and just kind of want the shows to flow, and you don't want to impact it. And at the same time, I mean, there's that temptation of wanting to do that. So there was that. Now over on TCW, I had given them so much time, and when we kind of realized that Jay wasn't going to really film the shows, and they brought in a film crew, which, to their credit, but it was just always kind of a thing of stressing about money on their end, which I totally understood. I mean, they were in a tough spot, but we kind of decided to part ways. No harm, no foul. I mean, the only negative or only regret was probably, I had a couple of storylines there that I really wanted to see finish. One being the Bolt Brady, Jacobs Pliskin best of 5 series. I wanted to see where that would have gone and really kind of showcase them on our Behind the Curtain series. Kind of the ascension of like a Ken and Barbie, where they would go. I kind of saw them as this amazing power couple. Wanted to see where where we could go with them. And then there was the Eagle Angel Blue romance. I was really wanting to see where that would go. I mean, we kind of our homage to Scott Pilgrim versus the World. A lot of us were fans of that. I was a big fan of it, so I was like, oh, let's turn that into like a wrestling angle. And I was kind of interested where we would have taken it, and I had a pretty good idea of where we were going to go with it. But a couple combinations. So yeah. But we got like episode 101 and episode 102, and then there was some. We'll get into that more when I talk to Justin in my conversation with Justin. So be on the lookout for that when I air that. Now, some things like 103, we'd actually thought about doing a reality wrestling behind the curtain edition. Had gotten an interview into a conversation with Booker, and we'd actually filmed it about the transitioning from PWA to ROW and the thought process behind it. And he was very gracious about welcoming us in there. We'd done an NWA Behind the Curtain edition before that, and I think we were going to air that at some point. We had like Scott Summers, really good interview with Scott Summers and Mike Dell, and a few others. I mean, we kind of always did a kind of a rapid fire interview with them, but I remember having a really good one with Scott, a real good sit down with Scott. And just talking about the maturation of his character, and the not necessarily a gimmick, but transitioning from how he was when I first met him to what he'd become, and just the mindset and whatnot. But that stuff was kind of there. The reason we stopped doing the show, and we would have kept doing it, is ultimately I think the goal was we wanted to do. We wanted to work on a good, probably be part of a good wrestling product, and when we both, got hired with Reality Wrestling, me working as well as helping on the back end, or behind the scenes, and then to get Justin and Doja Productions to kind of start filming the shows, and then gradually they, would become a bigger piece as far as from the production side. I think we'd found ultimately our goal, and we had achieved it. So, I mean, we both missed the show. We talk fondly of it. And I mean, it's good because me and Jay still work together, and a lot of the guys from IWE, and a lot of guys when I came to Houston and working with Book and whatnot. And which kind of ties into the next topic of story time. Wow, man. Wow. So, all right. So in the midst of doing Behind the Curtain, I was doing rehab and physical therapy, started to feel better, but I was, cautiously optimistic. I just wanted to feel better. I wasn't really worried about wrestling at that point. Plus, I had Behind the Curtain to kind of keep me going, and consulting and show running really kept my mind working, which was great, and kept my spirits up. And, again, going through rehab and physical therapy, and then them telling me, oh, you can kind of start working out, and then that gradually working, we getting to the bottom of what the issue is. I kind of went to them, physical therapists, as we were progressing, said, you think it'd be possible to get back in the ring? And they were like, we don't really see a reason why you couldn't. Just once you complete it, we'll get into it. They go, but take it slow. Same thing with my doctors. They're like, you're an adult, just monitor it. Be very aware of it, kind of make sure and kind of follow these rehabilitative things as far as stretching and warming up properly and all that, just to make sure that I was prepared physically to get back into it. And so I would go to TASW's training center, and I would kind of get in the ring just to see, and it was slow and gradual, and then gradually it would pick up, and I was like, okay. And the thing about it was getting to kind of see things as a commentator on the business, as a showrunner, as a spectator, as a host, and getting to see it from that point of view, made me miss being in the ring. I'm performing, and then I was thinking Behind the Curtain, like what we could do with Behind the Curtain if I was in the ring, how that could translate. So yeah, I got the bug, it bit me, and I was ready to get back in the ring. So I made my announcement October 22nd. I made my announcement that I would be returning to wrestling, and I had thrown out some feelers prior to that, MPX and ACW and a few others, like, hey, if I want to come back, maybe in 2012, let's see how my body handles, the rest of 2011. Let's go from there. Let's see where I'm at. So I threw out some feelers, but TASW is where I made the announcement. Got a phone call shortly thereafter from the powers that be at Gulf Coast Power Pro Wrestling, and they asked me to, if I wanted to be on their show. It would be October 29th, and then I found out I'd be facing Max Muscles for the GCPPW heavyweight title. And I was stoked and nervous. It was great being in the ring with Max. The chemistry is really great. It's off the charts there, and he's a great guy to work. I was tremendously humbled by getting that opportunity, especially so quickly back. My mindset returning was I wanted to do everything right. I wanted to prepare my body correctly. I wanted to be on the right diet. I wanted to be an example, man. You know, I'd see so much that was going wrong, but instead of being like a guy that's just going to point them out, like be the example and try to do my best when I was out there performing, and also perform without any concern for my back or my lower back or my neck or any of that. Yeah, man, I just really wanted to prove to myself that I could still do it, and I could still do it at a high level. You know, and I mean, upon my return, the latter part of 2011, I remember getting to wrestle Rodney Mack. Been like, you know, like almost, yeah, about a decade between facing one another. And man, it was great to face him. I have that footage somewhere. At some point, I'll put it out there, and I'll probably do some alternate commentary. Yeah. And then shortly after that, like a week after that match, I faced Max Muscles at GCPPW's Glory and Pain 7, and I was unsuccessful in my attempt to take the title from him. But then I won their No Rope Battle Royal, which made me the #1 contender, and I had bashed Max's knees, and I was a poor loser. And then I called him out, and like a fighting champion that he is, he came out practically crippled, and I beat him and became the GCPPW heavyweight champion. I got it right so far, and that was the first, my bad, but the Gulf Coast Power Pro Wrestling heavyweight champion. I was ecstatic because it was like, wow, I'm on top of the card, and I just returned like 2 months prior. So yeah. Now, about a month later, I go to NWA Houston for Behind the Curtain. That was that episode that we filmed where I talked to Scott Summers. I talked to Tony Brooklyn. Everything seemed kind of positive. There was some stuff to be worked out. On their end, that's what they said. They wanted me to do a couple behind the curtain episodes there, and then we would talk about potentially me coming in, and I thought, wow, that'd be kind of cool. Nothing came of it, though. But I saw possibilities. So, you know, I mean, I trained pretty diligently from like September. Yeah, probably from September on, I had been training pretty diligently. And, but I was still having some issues. Like, I had lost some of the weight that I'd put on because I'd been kind of, you know, unable to work out. I was eating not great. And then so I started kicking it into gear. My diet was right, so on and so forth. But I would still have aches and pains, like certain aches and pains. And I looked, really was wondering what I was going to do. And then my girl graciously got me Diamond Dallas Page's DDP Yoga, which has changed my life. I'll be honest, man. I mean, from the moment that I started using that, it's been like night and day. And I have some issues here and there, but a lot of that's due to me, like, not staying with the program like I should, and I'm real, you know, it's a constant struggle at times. But, gotta say, man, it changed my life. I'm really, like I said, I'm looking forward to July 26th and meeting the man in person and just thanking him for the product. The product's great. And I advise it to anyone. I've done that on numerous videos. See, I received that in early March. And in late March, TASW had their Humble Rumble 19, and I had become the #1 contender for the championship. And I'm the GCPPW heavyweight champion. But that title, the TASW title, was the title that I really wanted. And the champion at the time was Mysterious Q. I mean, this guy's amazing. Anyone who's seen reality wrestling knows that. Anyone who's seen him prior to that knew he was a star on the rise. And I knew what he brought. I knew what he had. Man, the guy's an amazing athlete, and it was a true pleasure getting to be in the ring with him. and even a better pleasure to beat him for the TASW heavyweight title. And I got footage of that, so at some point I'll put that out there. But man, awesome time. I was really on a, now I'm a champion at 2 companies. So a couple months later, and I think after getting talked to book at when we were going to film the behind the curtain stuff, we talked, and then I got invited to come back to debut at Reality Wrestling, and in essence come back to Booker. And I was ecstatic. I mean, I was nervous. I was real nervous that first show back. But he was so gracious, so welcoming. And I had a great opponent for my debut there. It was Rockstar Robbie, a guy I'd been feuding with at GCPPW at that time. But a guy on the rise, the very first Reality Wrestling heavyweight champion. But at that point, we're all kind of on equal ground. And I think like I main evented one of their shows, and man, put up a fight, but Rockstar was the better guy. But I saw something with Reality Wrestling even then. Like, man, I just really want to be a part of this in any way, shape, or form. And talk to the powers that be there. And, luckily I've been able to remain a part of that in some capacity. So, man, I'm riding high. I can't complain. And one of that things on my list, rejoining Booker, was checked off, and being the TASW heavyweight champion was marked off, and getting back in the ring, all that, feeling good, and especially with DDP Yoga, I was feeling good. So I decided to really see where I was. I mean, mind you, now I'm part of Reality Wrestling. Booker likes my work, likes what he sees. So I think about doing TNA's Gut Check. They were coming into Houston. They were going to do a house show. And there are, people have their opinions of that, of tryouts, of paying for tryouts. I was like, man, it's an investment. It'd be the equivalent of going to a seminar and paying your money and get looked at. And I didn't have this thought, oh, I'm going to get a contract necessarily, because I needed to be realistic. I knew they were just going to be looking at people. But I thought maybe the right eyes will see me, and who knows. And that tryout, I tried to be first in line and everything, and I wasn't hesitant with anything. And even if I made mistakes, I tried to correct them as best I could. Got some good feedback from like Bruce Pritchard and Simon Diamond and a few others, and some of the people there, real gracious with their feedback and whatnot. And I didn't see it as necessarily a bad thing. Like a week prior to that, or the same week, I got to face Tim Storm at a benefit show. It was like a BOW, PCW benefit show. Lance Wade had put it together, and he put me and Tim facing one another. We're both former PCW champions. He built it as this big deal, and we got to do mic work. And getting in the ring with Tim is always a pleasure, and that was no different. I really enjoyed my time in the ring with him. And I was going through like wrestling for TASW and ROW and GCPPW. And then I actually even returned to IWE in August of that, like mid-August of that, of 2012. I came back to the Armadillo, but I was the TASW heavyweight champion as well as the GCPPW heavyweight champion. And I was going to face the IWE heavyweight champion, Mr. B. And match was all right. I came out on the winning end, but I didn't win the title. I won by DQ. But what really stood out was just the respect that I got from a lot of new faces because of my position with IWE previously. And for the most part, the hatchet had been buried for the most part. As far as I was concerned, it was old news. I was just wanting to enjoy the moment and enjoy the process and all that. So then I joined CWF. But before that, on January 8th, 2013, my grandmother passed away. Passed away on my mom's birthday. And, I mean, that floored me. My grandmother had been real sick for months, for like 6-7 months. And, you know, her health just declined. And, I mean, it was heartbreaking. You know, saw her on my birthday. She didn't even recognize me. And I think that was the most painful part, because we'd always joke that she'd remember me over a lot of people. And, you know, I accept it. I want to believe she's in a better place. I do believe she's in a better place. But, I mean, it took a lot out of me. I mean, that was tough. It was tough. Yeah, it was tough. It's still tough. Some days, you know, I miss her. She's my, like, biggest fan. Now, moving on. As I mentioned, CWF. I had been brought in initially, being the TASW heavyweight champion, to kind of do a cross-promotion thing, face their CWF champion at the time, which was Lance Beretta. Faced him once. I had won, but it was by DQ, so it was going to be a one-off deal. But then after the DQ finished, they offered me another opportunity at the title. And on January 26th, I defeated Lance Beretta for the CWF title. So at that point, I'm holding 3 titles in 3 separate promotions. And I was letting people know about it, and I was taking pictures with them, and I had the 3 titles, and I would do my YouTube stuff, and I'd have all the titles, and, you know, chugging along at ROW. I started to do some consulting backstage and just helping out guys with their matches and kind of how to put stuff together and whatnot, and which is, you know, more or less my role moving, you know, today, and helping people with character development and whatnot. And I really enjoy all of that. You know, fun times, man. Fun times. So yeah, I was holding 3 titles, but I wouldn't hold 3 titles for long. Come like June of 2013, I wrestled at a TASW show. I faced Thunderjet, and at that point I injured my hip flexor. And so I went to the doctors, and they were like, you know, let it heal. You just can't really do anything. And I tried all kinds of things to try to be ready, but come June 22nd, I wasn't prepared or ready physically to defend the CWF title. And so the order was made that they would strip me of the title, which would end my reign after 148 days, never having been pinned or submitted or anything like that. I found it kind of ironic because the show prior, my opponent had been injured. It was Lance Beretta. He'd been injured, and so I just came out and attacked him. But he was injured, so he couldn't do a full match. But he didn't really get punished. You know, he got another title shot, and I never have gotten a rematch or anything like that, but whatever. I mean, 148 days. So I'm still champion at GCPPW and TASW. GCPPW goes into a name change. They go from GCPPW to HPW, like in June. So a lot happened in June. Almost, you know. Then in August of 2013, in a triple threat for the HPW Gulf Coast Power Pro Wrestling Heavyweight title, I lost the title to Rockstar Robbie in a triple threat, which had me and Rockstar Robbie and Ruthless Ryan Davidson in a triple threat. And Robbie pinned me for the title, roughly 624 days into my title reign. And probably by this point, I mean, wrestling for all different companies, I mean, it can wear on you. And, you know, I probably got, like, overconfident to some degree because had been champion. So, yeah. I mean, I had a blast being the champion. And I really got to thank the powers that be with HPW for giving me the opportunity. Much like I got to thank the powers that be at CWF for giving me the opportunity to be part of their show. I mean, how I lost it or was stripped of the CWF title, no big deal. That's always in the record books. HPW, I think I held the title longer than anyone else, so hopefully that will be a record that lasts through for quite a while. You never know. If someone's getting near it, I might have to come out and take the title from them. So yeah, then about a month later, at TASW's Best of the Best, I was facing Darkstar, a guy I'd faced numerous times and had pretty good success, but he had been demanding a title shot. I was a fighting champion. And then on September 29th, 2013, just a mental lapse, and then those 3 seconds I went from being the champion to no longer being the champion. And after a 548-day title reign, I lost to Darkstar. And kudos to Darkstar, man. He took advantage of a situation and made the most and caught me slipping. And you know, he's still champ to this day. And I wish him a long and fruitful championship run. But yeah, you know, my hope as we got to like day 500 was that I could last till the Umble Rumble, and by that point I think I would be close to Zen Zen's historic title reign. I think his was like, I want to say it was like 730, and I wanted to get there, but 548. So I mean, you know, all in all, man, a blast. All those title reigns were great, and it really kind of showed me that I could still perform at a high level, still perform on top of the card, still could be entertaining, still could cut good promos, still could compete with the younger talent. You know, I felt I had matured as a competitor, and yeah, man. I mean, that whole period of time after IWE was great, with Behind the Curtain, getting to work with Jay. In a time where things were kind of uncertain, and then, you know, finding out that I could perform again, being able to perform again, and where I'm at today. I mean, you know, my last appearance at HPW, I wrestled AJ Rush, which was something I'd been wanting to do for quite some time, and just the fact that I got to work him, and, you know, potentially my last match there was a true honor. And he's a great kid, man, great kid, tremendous upside. What I do at reality wrestling, I really enjoy. Being backstage, helping the young men and women of that product, helping make that product better, working with creative to really get the most out of everyone and make the best show humanly possible. And everybody there works really hard. My last appearance with TASW to date was when I special guest refereed Darkstar taking on Jason Sullivan, and you know, kind of a controversial ending, but it is what it is. You know, at this point, I guess you consider it a hiatus. I don't, you know, I'm still in the wrestling business. I'm just not performing actively, but you never know. Just kind of really looking forward to what the future brings, man. And with that, video 200, you'll just have to see it to believe it. And then video 201, the conversation series, Judson Smith, my first guest, and we have loads of fun talking about that. So, without any further delay, as I always like to end these, stay cool, stay sexy, stay classy. But hey guys, come back for video 200. I'm sure you'll enjoy it. It'll be action-packed. And then be sure to stick around for video 201. Justin Smith, kind of the creator of Dojo Productions, and yours truly. We'll talk about a variety of topics, but until the next time,